Hello and welcome to Physical Science Online. This is where I will run through a description of some skill that you will need to do in class that I think is just more relevant to have a video recording of. That way you can come back to it, you can look back through it, you can ask me questions about it, and it's the same for each class. So that's the purpose of this video. Today's video will be looking at our first equation of semester 2, which is our velocity equation. Now, as you've learned in class through your reading or through casual talking, velocity is speed with a direction, and our velocity equation is velocity equals change in distance divided by change in time. Now, when we're doing these velocity questions, we often forget to give it a direction per se, and that's because a direction can even just be a positive or a negative. So just by being aware that you can be moving left or right, and we usually call that positive and negative, that's fine for velocity, and that's why for the purposes of our class, we're always going to call everything velocity, because we're usually at least thinking positives and negatives, if not east, west, north, south, up, down, stuff like that. So there's a little history of it. Getting to an example, we're doing the 4-step method for problem solving. We're going to do a lot of these 3-variable equations this year. So I'm going to run through the 4-step method. This is the exact same method that you would use to solve your density equations in semester 1. You're going to get some sort of a story problem. In your story problem, you're going to have to identify at least 2 of your 3 variables. Let's say you had a story problem where you know that you need to find the velocity. You don't know, or you do know that the change in distance was 10 meters and the change in time was 2 seconds. Then that's step 1, identify all your variables. Step 2, identify your equation. Your equation for right now is always going to be v equals d divided by t. If you want to throw the deltas out in front, that means change in. You don't need to as you're writing these down, but just for properness, I'm going to for this video. You can rearrange this equation. So like if you had an unknown of d or t, you can use your algebra skills to rearrange this equation. We'll go through examples of that later on, but I'm just doing the basic one right now. For now, we have our unknown all by itself. That's the important part, so I don't need to rearrange this equation. V is our unknown, so we start just plugging stuff in. V stays V since we don't know it, but we do know delta D is 10 meters. And we do know that delta T is 2 seconds. It is important in step 3 to have your units. If you don't have your units in step 3, you will lose partial credit if we do any work-related problems. Maybe not on a test. These tests this year are more multiple choice. Most years they're short answer. You would normally lose credit if you don't have this. If you're somebody that's really advanced in math, likes to do math in your head, as a little hint too, step 3 is your required step. If you think you can do steps 1 and 2 in your head, go for it. You are required on paper to show what you throw through in your calculator with units, with proper units. You are required to do that while you're doing these problems. Okay, then it's as simple as plugging it into the calculator. 10 divided by 2, if you need a calculator, I hope you can do that in your head, is 5. And meters divided by seconds, nothing cancels out, so that's why units are so important. That's why the chickens are so important. VLA students, I'll share the chicken video with you. The chickens are so important. Meters per second. Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. Nothing cancels out. That's where miles per hour comes from. That's where meters per second comes from, feet per second. Whatever you're measuring in, that's your units. And that's why it's so important to have the correct units up here. Okay, there's my intro video. I'll do a follow-up video where I solve for D and T, just so you get examples of those as well. You just use this method. It's called the 4-step method. It works for every 3-variable equation. We will only do 3-variable equations here in second semester of physical science. And as long as you get this method, you should be good as long as you pick the right equation. There we go. I'll see you in the next video for more examples.